I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Is everybody okay with that? Section 505, Department of Finance, Finance Director. And that's at the top of page 15. And we have here, review this section to make sure we are okay. Some concern expressed regarding cleaning up gender references and what about Ohio statutes? And Jeff says, I have no issue with the current language.
Wasn't it, didn't it have like a he slash she?
With his or her.
His or her, what's, I don't see what's wrong with that.
There isn't anything wrong with that.
Okay.
We okay?
Yeah. 507, go to page 16. In the meantime, I have 506 that I have a big star beside it. Let's see. And
That's where we talked about changing the date.
Wanting to revise the timetable to meet reality.
Yeah.
And then it was rough, and the note I have is, we do not get this figure in time to meet the date of the first day of June, reference back to 2.06.
Right. And
everything
so,
goes back to
yeah,
2.06.
but, yeah, we need to rework that, and we know it. And so we will reword that, so we need to work that though. We're talking about 506, budget, we need to rework that. And it didn't go to Jeff because we had already talked about it quite a bit. 507, appropriations. No amending or supplemental appropriations ordinance shall be required to be published. Such ordinances shall be effective immediately. They want to make sure that this is right. He says, seems fine to me. And this says, no amending or supplemental appropriations ordinance shall be required to be published. Such ordinances shall be effective immediately, the way it's written. Are we okay with that?
Yeah.
I am.
Okay. Section 508. What is the cap specified by the laws of the state of Ohio for which such purchases or work may be accomplished within advertisement and competitive bidding? Does that change from year to year? Some would like to consider stating a cap. I am concerned that is unnecessarily getting into administrative minutia. He says, I believe the cap under the state law is currently $25,000. It has changed over the years. It used to be $15,000, so I suppose it could change again. The village is not required to mirror the cap under the state law, but any new cap being imposed is more appropriately determined by an ordinance of council rather than charter.
Yeah, I would say to that, and I would respectfully disagree with Jeff. It's a matter of philosophy, quite frankly. 25,000 isn't that much when you compare it to the state of Ohio. So 25,000 for city of Cincinnati or Cleveland or Columbus, it's a drop in the bucket. So it perhaps makes some kind of fiscal sense not to worry about a $25,000 limit or gap or cap. Village of Greenhills is in a different situation. It's not even a city, it's a village. Our income has been reduced from over $6 million a year down to roughly $3 million already in the last several years. By the state taking money, reduced property valuation, any number of reasons, it's gone. So $25,000 for a village is a heck of a lot of money to issue out without bid or competitive bidding. It wouldn't be much for a large city. It wouldn't be much for a medium. It probably wouldn't be much for Forest Park. But when you consider our budget, you might want to consider putting some kind of cap in there less than 25,000. Yeah, it's easy to, you want to give a manager convenience and ability to get something done in a hurry and not have to go through competitive bidding every time they turn around. Makes sense. You don't want to do it to buy pencils. On the other hand, when you get up to 25,000, you're dealing with a lot of bucks for a city our size or a village our size. So it's a matter of degree. You might want to put in there, shall not exceed the permit, exceed 80% of what is permitted by under state law or something like that. That way, if the state law increases it to 30%, 30,000, yours is increased too, but it's not to 30,000, it's within a cap. You just might want to consider that for economic reasons.
Nick?
Your turn.
That might be true, but I think I like what he says about that's none of our business and it should be determined by council. So I would say to stick with what.
But isn't there already a cap at 25?
Under state law.
Under state law it is.
So how about for us?
No,
Is
state law,
Greenhills,
state law.
is we have a 25?
So it would be
Yeah.
25.
So if it's anything over that, if it's a job that you're thinking
You've gotta
might be
bid it.
more
You've
than
gotta
that,
bid it
then you
somewhere.
have to go and
Have
get
to
the
bid,
competitive bid, yeah.
And normally, what the managers do traditionally here is if you're gonna spend anything, you do get quotes from people, generally.
So, I mean, do you wanna drop it to 15 or 20 or something and say that if it's,
Or we could. get
Make it a
this-
percentage of whatever the
we could-
state allows.
I mean, these days with the price of things, I mean,
Agree,
You
but
know.
this is why we're discussing it, because, you know, you don't want the manager's hand tied with going to a newspaper and advertising to buy pencils. That makes sense. On the other hand, 25,000 is starting to talk about a lot of money for a village of our size and out of the income we have coming in now. And as Nikki says, yeah, council can change it, but it only takes 4 people in council to change something like that. And you all of a sudden you get 4 people to go from 15,000 to 25,000 or max again, and all of a sudden you're back to square one. If you have it in the charter, it makes it a little bit more difficult for council just to change it. So.
That I think that council members work on that budget, and the municipal manager is always squeezing to get everything they can within that budget done. And they're not going to foolishly go out and hire big jobs to be done without factoring where does that leave them, what's left in the budget, what other projects do they have to get done. If we do anything, I think we try to be savvy about who we put into heading up the administrative management. And council is there overseeing what they're doing. And so if anybody's got a loose hand there and they're spending too freely, council, 4 of the 6 should be sharp enough to catch that. I mean, I think that basically,
I'm thinking there's a compromise of saying, let's have a cap of $25,000 or an amount as determined by council. I mean, part of what I'm chuckling about is the, getting into the management minutia, but I can remember with the maintenance director wanted to get a pickup truck, and I said, well, you've got to go and get bids. And she said, well, I know Ford's got the best pickup, so I'll go to 3 Ford dealers. I said, no, talk to talk to Toyota.
she knew what she wanted.
yeah.
But, it wasn't broadening the thing, so I guess I'm thinking this is something that would be hard to enforce.
Mhm.
To plant the seed in terms of reminding council.
Right.
We could say we have a cap of X, or, as established by the council, and force them to make a conscious decision. But, like on the health insurance, that's gotta be a huge line item for the village.
I don't think after January 1st, 2014, we're gonna have to worry about it. It's all gonna be Obamacare. And I don't know if anyone's ever looked from the village standpoint, or Jeff's looked into what our liability of the village is gonna be for health care after January 1st, 2014.
Well-
That's when everything kicks in.
Should have started about a year ago.
Yeah.
They should have, but I don't know if they have.
No, the
And
whole world should have
Yeah.
started about a year ago.
And it's gonna kick in, and I know people that have been put on notice by their companies that as of January 1st, they will not have any company health insurance. The company's either using the option of paying the penalty to the government, which is maybe $2,000 a year, which is a heck of a lot less than they have to pay out for a policy for an employee, or give the employee maybe $3,000 or $4,000 so you go buy your own. And that's going to happen in about a year, or less than a year.
All right, well, let me spin my opinion. I think
Yeah.
it's just as easy and simple to stay with the state law. And I realize 25,000 isn't much for the city of Cincinnati, but the large cities are in the minority in the state, and there's a heck of a lot more villages smaller than us. And so I'm not sure what the reasoning is when the state comes up with these adjustments. But, yeah, I mean,
That's why we
There's
formed
probably-
consortiums.
probably 500 villages in the state of Ohio smaller than us that go by this.
I don't think that's true anymore. At one time, that's probably true, but some of them were going out of business, forced to go out of business. Was it Amelia's going down the tube or something like that? Because they just can't afford to stay in existence.
Are we marking this as revisit?
I think we better. Don't you? Yeah. We might do a little bit more research on it too.
It's not a legal issue, it's just more of a philosophy.
It's a
philosophical issue.
prudent business practice.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, section 5.10
I'm laughing at
engineer.
his reply.
What?
I'm just laughing at his reply.
Oh. The engineer shall review drawings as approved. Please interpret. And so Jeff says, I actually don't know what this means. I assume it must mean something like the engineer shall review drawings as requested, but I'm not sure. You may want to ask Yvonne, since the manager is the one that would oversee the engineer. And she reread this when we were talking about it, and she said, what it should read, she thinks, is the engineer shall review drawings as approved, or take the sentence out. You know, just as approved, period. And then she said, either that or just take it out. She said it really isn't necessary in that paragraph.
Well, it's almost like the charter is prescribing a job duty.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is minutia.
Yeah, well, and it doesn't, you know, it doesn't define which drawings. You know,
Just
there's
all the ones that are approved.
Well, you know, that's part of their work, is they prepare specifications and drawings for everything, whether it's
They
streets
review
or-
their drawings.
Yeah.
Don't we have an arrangement with the county engineer to review our drawings?
No.
No.
No? You don't have your own health department here either, so
Mhm.
we'd have to contract that out. I don't know, who do we contract that to, if anybody?
Well, the health department is through the county, because
Yeah.
villages
Yeah,
have to go
they're
through the
county.
county.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Only cities can have their own health department.
So, based on talking to her, I would almost say, let's take that sentence out.
Yeah, which is deletes
Yeah.
us out.
Yeah.
Makes no sense.
Okay, Article 6, Boards and Commissions, Section 6.02, 03, 04. What about changing the number of members on these boards, Planning and Board of Zoning Appeals, so that they are more even? What if we change the title of the Planning Commission to Planning and Historical Preservation Commission? Is the primary questions whether it is worth it or not to make these suggestions. And so Jeff says, changing the number of members is best left to the commission, the council, and the voters. It's not a legal question. Changing the name of the planning commission is fine, but may not be necessary. The zoning code amendments that are currently being considered by council refer to the body as the planning commission, but it also gives certain additional duties related to historic preservation. I don't think it is necessary, underlines necessary, to change the name, but it is permitted. So,
I don't know, that seems like there's gonna be so much, you know, to do something unnecessary, and the attorney's telling us it's unnecessary.
Unless you're one of the persons going before the planning board and you have a loaded board. If you're going before the Board of Zoning Appeals or the Planning Commission, you've already got two designated people there that are controlling it. You only have 5 members of the board.
I'm thinking the number of members is the more important question than changing the name of the commission, because
Yeah, the commission,
I think
Yeah,
they've
what
got
you
power to
call
do
it
that.
is, you know.
with changing the number of members or making someone an unvoting member,
Yeah.
either option would do it.
Well, I think we need to ask Jeff the question as to what's state law in this area.
Okay.
Because,
No, he's saying it's not a legal question.
well, but the question of, the way the planning commission was set up before was, we were statutory before. Now, I don't know whether that was state law that said how the makeup was, or whether the village had the right to have the mayor and a council member on the planning commission.
It's still statutory, but I haven't checked the statute for about 6 months, so.
So, you know, so that's how we evolved to where we are today
on all of these,
on all this. Now, the charter could change it, but, you know, it'd be nice to know whether it's in the state statute for a planning commission for a village, how's it made up?
Okay.
There used to be a law book up here, which I could look at, but I don't see it over there.
I think they've been moved.
Probably be Title VII.
Yeah,
in the
it
cities.
is.
Well, let's hold on to this one and
Yeah.
So we'll revisit.
revisit and research. I'm putting D. Moore here for further work on that,
Okay.
deciphering that. Section 6.06, Board of Health. Do we really need this section at all, since we are not anticipating becoming a city in the future? His suggestion is to leave it there. If the village ever gains city status, the provision will be activated. If not, it does no harm to be there. Are we okay with that?
Hmm.
I am.
I am. Okay. And section 6.09, general provisions. The majority of its members are present shall be meetings, this is a quote, a majority of its members are present shall be meetings open to the public except as provided by rules adopted by said boards or commissions, which rules and all other rules adopted by said board or commission shall supersede and override state statutes. Is this okay? I mean, that sentence doesn't even make sense. Okay, Jeff says, this is a tricky one. In general, municipalities have the authority to deviate from the state law with respect to open meetings. That is usually done either directly by the charter or by the charter granting that authority to the legislative body to act by ordinance. Granting the power to boards and commissions to deviate from state law simply by adopting rules seems to stretch beyond home rule authority. My suggestion would be to change it to something like this, quote, except as prescribed by this charter or to the extent that it is not prescribed herein in such manner as shall be provided by ordinance or resolution of council. Any such ordinance shall supersede and override state statutes. All that being said, I'm not at all suggesting that you deviate from state law on this item. You could just as easily state, except as provided for the Ohio Revised Code.
And that's what I would opt for.
That seems easier.
It's the easiest
And-
way
And
out.
clear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
It might even save an election on this. If somebody reads that, they're gonna say they're trying to pull the hat over my eyes and
Mhm.
do something special. So I'm voting no on the whole package.
Mm-hmm.
So, in looking at 6.09, where I highlighted, I started with the very last paragraph where it says all meetings of each board and commission shall comply with all rules for notification of meetings to the public, and all meetings of any board or commission at which a majority of its members are present shall be meetings open to the public except,
By,
and all we're gonna do is take everything else out and add,
and except as
except as provided by, for, and the Ohio State Revised Code.
Because the revised code does call for
Except-
certain times when you could have an
Except
executive
as.
session,
Okay, so when-
not open
Right.
Okay.
meetings.
Are you all good with that?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Article 8, Section 803. Okay. Removal from office, a board or commission. Please clarify terminology with respect to the terms board and commission. And Jeff says, I believe board or commission in this context means but any board or commission established by the village. This would include planning commission, board of zoning appeals, recreation commission, tax board of review, board of health, if there was one, volunteer fireman's board, if there is one, civil service board, if there ever is one, the recent appointed tree commission, and probably the charter review commission.
So if in the first sentence we had it read member of any board or commission?
A member of a.
I think the question was raised trying to figure
Of
out
a board or
is
commission.
a board or commission a specific body?
Change A to any.
A to any, I think, would answer the question.
The office of an elected official or member of any board or commission of the municipality shall be declared vacant by resolution of council upon determination of the elected officials. Mm-hmm. Anybody else have any thoughts? Because I like that. I mean, it's
Mhm.
Just change the word a to
and
any.
A to any.
Which one is that? 804?
803, the first line.
Okay.
Removal from office, the
Any-
office of an elected official or member of any board or commission of the municipality.
And that does sound better, it makes more sense,
Mhm.
but now will that have to go on and be voted on?
We'll recommend that, but
I don't have
council.
803.
Okay.
Here,
Page 21.
Oh, okay, all right, okay, all right.
page 21.
I agree with Heidi. I think, yeah, like we're gonna put something on the ballot to change the
A
word
to
from
any,
A to any.
Yeah.
And I guess as we go, and maybe as we really go back through all of this again, we'll look at these teeny things.
Right, does it make more sense that way and sound better? Yes.
I agree with it,
does,
but.
Yeah.
But,
Well, and we
You
can
wanna put that
recommend it
for
just
vote.
to clarify meaning, you know.
Yeah,
and
I
it's-
totally agree with.
From a process standpoint, whatever we recommend to council, they're
It's just a
gonna make their
recommendation.
judgment
They
on it.
will.
They were
And then the
elected.
language
Right.
would be
Mhm.
developed
Mhm.
probably by the law director on how it goes into the ballot.
Possibly.
right, they could make the choice
Yeah.
if it,
But
if
when
they
they
think it's
see,
vote worthy or not.
but when they see the quality of the people that are sitting here tonight, they will say no to nothing.
Oh, thanks.
Definitely. I'm sure that's.
Using
More
some of your
candy.
product again, eh?
Well, let's, we'll revisit that, but that's what, what we could do with that to solve it. I like that simple solution because it clarifies the whole thing. Okay. Are you all okay with doing that? E, on page 22 in the charter. For our understanding, please define and differentiate the terms misfeasance, malfeasance, or non-feasance as meant in legal terms.
And thanks
I
to this,
remember
I have
was
used these
reading-
words in the last couple of weeks. I just want you to know.
Oh,
Oh, younger I did all of
So
them.
smart, it's an education
Having
for
a
you.
Scrabble game?
Just
in general,
yeah, right.
Talk.
Okay, here is the simplest, I mean, she's gonna, her friends are gonna start leaving, she'll get a whole new level of friends. here.
I tried to
All
slip those into
college
conversation.
professors or
That's
something.
Right.
Here's the simplest way that Jeff can explain it. He says, misfeasance, doing what you are supposed to do but doing it incorrectly or poorly. Malfeasance, doing something you are not supposed to do or doing some bad act, quotes. Non-feasance, not doing what you are supposed to do, period.
Now, who
So,
has not used those words with their kids?
Mismal and non.
I did. Malfeasance usually implies something illegal, not always, but
Yeah.
that's the connotation.
I shouldn't do this, but I'm going to take a quantum leap and go clear over here for just a second, because what this reminded me of, I went to a memorial service where somebody died just recently, and one of the sons stood up, and they said, he said, when we were bad as kids, there were 2 boys and a girl, when we were bad, he said, what my mother did, we thought was hysterically funny, but I can still recite all the books of the Bible because of her, because when they would be bad, instead of her yelling at them or, swearing or anything else, she'd say Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, and Judges. And he says, I can rattle them off clear through Proverbs. He says, I must have either stopped listening or she was done. But it just struck me so funny. I just thought, I think I swore. My son takes great pride in telling people, my mother never swore until I was a teenager. She never swore in her whole life till I was a teenager.
I can relate
Proud
to
to bring that out of Josie.
Yeah, he's proud of that, I think. So anyway, onward. Here we are at 8.04, and I think, Ken, this is your baby here, isn't it? Yeah, no, maybe it is. Yeah, I think it was.
The issues come up in the previous election.
Yeah, and that was more just, why is it a higher standard than state law?
Mm-hmm. And he says, I'm not sure where the 6 month came from. There is no 6 month language in the state law. One other village that I represent also has the 6 month requirement and also has the 25% petition requirement, which is different than the 15% in the state law. The other communities that I represent simply reference the state law for recall procedures. Please note that the 25% versus 15% difference was submitted to the ballot recently and failed. I'm not sure if it also planned to eliminate the 6 month language or not.
And that was only reference to the recall.
Mm-hmm.
Referendum and initiative and referendum are still 10% under state law. And there's none required, that's what it is in our charter references state law as far as initiative and referendum. So if you want to put an initiative on a ballot, you only have to go by 10% of the last voters in the last election.
Although he's saying 15% in the state law?
That's only as to recall.
Oh, it's recall.
It's disjunctive. You have initiative and referendum are 2 things dealing with amendment of statutes. A referendum is something you've passed. you don't like it and you want it repealed before it becomes effective. So, say for example, we have a zoning ordinance coming up, someone doesn't like the way it is, they've got 30 days to get a petition of so many signatures, roughly about 150 or 60, of people who don't like it, didn't have it repealed,